In a quiet little village nestled between sun-baked hills and endless skies, lived an old farmer named Arvind. He owned nothing grand. No tractor. No modern tools. Just a pair of worn-out sandals, a patched kurta, and a small piece of dry, cracked land that hadn't yielded crops in years. The villagers often pointed and whispered behind his back. Why is he wasting his time? That land's as dead as his old bones. He should retire, or just give up. But every morning, before the sun stretched its arms across the sky, Arvind would rise, take his tin lunchbox, and walk silently toward his barren land. He didn't argue. He didn't explain. He didn't reply. He simply dug. Planted. Watered. Prayed. People laughed louder. But Arvind just smiled softer. Not once did he say, "I'll show you." Not once did he defend himself. He let the soil listen. He let time answer. And in that silence, something was taking root. Something no one could see. Rains never came. The clouds passed like strangers, offering no comfort, no promise. Fields all around turned into deserts. Even the strongest farmers packed their tools and left. But Arvind? He stayed. Each day, he walked farther to collect small pots of water from a distant stream. He used them sparingly, not for himself, but for his land. He didn't complain. He didn't shout at the sky. He just kept digging trenches. Building compost piles. Planting seeds, into dry, hopeless soil. Children giggled when they passed by. Look at him. Farming sand. Some adults felt pity. Others rolled their eyes. Even the village head came once and asked gently. Why are you working so hard, Arvind? This land hasn't grown anything in years. And Arvind only looked down, touched the soil with calloused fingers, and whispered. Not yet. But it will. No argument. No explanation. Just quiet faith. The kind that doesn't seek to convince. The kind that knows. When the time is right, even the hardest ground can soften. Then one morning, as the village lay asleep under heavy clouds, thunder cracked. And rain, finally, after 2 long years, came pouring down from the heavens. At first, a drizzle. Then a storm. The village erupted with joy. Children ran out to dance. Elders prayed in tears. Buckets, pots, barrels, everything was pulled out to catch the sacred water. And Arvind? He stood alone in his field, arms wide open, eyes lifted to the sky. Not to celebrate. But to surrender. The trenches he had dug filled with rainwater. The compost he had prepared soaked deep into the earth. The seeds he had planted silently, began to breathe. But no one noticed. A week passed. Then another. Tiny sprouts began to emerge in Arvind's field, green, vibrant, and alive. In a village filled with silence, one field whispered back to the sky. People started to glance. Then stare. Then whisper. That's Arvind's land, isn't it? Wasn't that the cursed patch? How is this possible? And someone finally said it aloud. He planted before it rained. Now, the whispers changed. From laughter, to awe. Visitors came. Reporters scribbled notes. Even government officers showed up, amazed at the miracle. But Arvind didn't stand tall or boast. He simply nodded, offered a warm cup of tea, and returned to his work. Then, one afternoon, a group of boys who once mocked him approached his fence. They stood awkwardly, shuffling their feet. Sir, one finally said, could you teach us? We want to learn. Arvind's eyes twinkled, and he waved them in. He showed them how to feel the soil. How to dig trenches that caught water. How to mix cow dung, dry leaves, and food scraps into nutrient-rich compost. Day by day, more villagers returned to their own abandoned fields, watching and copying Arvind's quiet methods. And slowly, the land changed. Not because someone gave a speech. Not because someone demanded respect. But because one man lived what he believed, even when no one believed in him. The very people who laughed now greeted him with folded hands. He never said, "I told you so." He never raised his voice. Because when the fruit of faith blooms, there's no need for noise. That year, Arvind's harvest was the richest in the region. Golden wheat danced in the wind like waves of gratitude. Birds nested in his trees. The air around his field smelled of peace. He invited the village children to harvest with him. "This crop," he said, "is not mine. It belongs to everyone who learns to wait, to believe, and to work." As the villagers celebrated, someone asked him, "Why didn't you ever respond when people mocked you?" Arvind chuckled softly, the lines around his eyes folding like pages in a wise book. He said, "The soil doesn't argue with the storm. It just prepares to bloom when it passes." Years later, after Arvind passed away, the villagers built a small stone at the edge of his field. It didn't carry a long message. No fancy title. Just simple words carved in gentle respect. "Here lived a farmer who taught us that belief doesn't need to shout. It just needs to grow." And even today, when the wind blows through that quiet village, it carries more than dust. It carries a lesson. That the strongest words are often the ones that are never spoken. Headphone closing line, pause for emotion. Sometimes, the best way to prove people wrong is to never say a word. Just let your work bloom, and let the world watch in silence.